Hi, welcome, Trent, to Quantum Alchemist Master Podcast. I'm actually very excited to have you here to listen a little bit about your story, your journey. Why don't you start and tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Shreveport, Louisiana. So I grew up there. I went to college in Louisiana, graduated with an MBA and IT degree, traveled around the country and then the world, installing large IT systems. And I ended up in New Zealand, of all places. The bottom end of the world. I lived there for a long time. Beautiful country, wonderful people. I loved it. I loved it. It was an awesome, awesome place. I'm back in the States now.
Okay. How's the beach there?
It's like, I kind of think of it kind of like Florida, it's just it's an island, so it's beach everywhere.
It's
And
beautiful.
yeah, I mean, they're really kind of greeny there. They're into natural and preserving, and so, there's a lot of clean, nice, beautiful beaches, just you can get off, you can go and with a big crowd of people, or you can go off down, way far away and get on an isolated beach where it's just you. It's a cool place.
Very cool. So tell me a little bit about your journey in regards to your health. How did that all started to unfold? Maybe when it happened, what led to it?
Sure, sure. Well, I moved down to New Zealand with an I went to do IT work, and I was in the boxing gym, and I met this American guy that was down there as a manager, and I kind of got to know him, and he did farmer market, like outdoor craft market kettle corn in his home state. So we started a kettle corn business on the weekends while I was doing that, and it blew up crazy. It turned into this massive manufacturing deal, a couple of plants, and we serviced all the supermarkets and internationally and everything. Well, in 2019, on the top of popcorn heaven, as I like to call the factory, I started limping around, and I went to a couple of GPs. They all kept saying the same thing. We think you've torn a butt muscle. Okay, all right. It just wasn't getting better. And I had to go into the hospital to have some blood work done, just not totally unrelated. And the hematologist said, look, I think something's wrong. Let's get an x-ray. Okay, all right. I kind of, argued with her. A week later, she calls when I'm on my way to lunch from the factory and said, Trent, you've got aggressive, massive hip bone cancer, and you have a quarter inch of bone holding your leg on. Every step you take, you're in danger of breaking your leg. If you break your leg, it's coming off. Where are you right now? You have to come to the hospital immediately. That's how it all started.
Could I pause you there for a moment?
Yeah.
Wow. So what was your first thoughts when you got those news? Like how'd you process that? How did it hit you like just a brick in the face? Like how did you dealt with that those first couple of seconds when you heard those news?
Well, I couldn't believe it. Obviously, it shocked me, but I came at it in the hole already because my brother's best friend, my aunt and uncle's godson, a good friend of ours, died at the age of 38, left his wife and kids of cancer about a year before, not even. All I could think of was that. Yeah. So it just did my head in right there at the start, terrible. So yeah, that's kind of how it was, and immediately, like I called home. I couldn't get a hold of my mom. I called my dad, and I was very upset, obviously emotionally upset, and he just kept saying, you're not Chris, you're not like Chris. That isn't going to happen to you. And man, I mean, I was just, so. Went to the hospital, and checked in. It's public health care in New Zealand. So, it's what you would think of. It's free, but the service is average and it takes a long time to do anything. So that's kind of how the whole journey was like that in New Zealand.
Okay. So when you found out about this, that you moved back to the States to get treatment, or how did that go?
couple of years. I was there still a couple of years. So I stayed in New Zealand. Yeah. And had the surgery there. I didn't, I didn't think I could get insurance in the States. And I was on the public insurance that no one pays for in New Zealand. It's all part of your taxes. So, no one has private paid insurance like they do in America. It's just different. It's different. So, we had my records, sent here and had some evaluations done, and they actually, gave us a better option in New Zealand. So we decided, well, let's just have the surgery there. So, what the plan was, they start to build an implant, and then a couple months later, let's put the thing in, the cancer had progressed, so the implant wouldn't fit. And so we started over. Third time, they're like, well, it's progressed too far, we're gonna have to cut your leg off. Well, I lost it, and thank God at that, I finally, what I was doing is I was getting my parents on the phone with my big appointments. They'd be on the speakerphone talking with me and the doctor, right? My dad just stepped in. He said, look, you're not cutting this guy's leg off. He's a fighter. He's not a quitter. You don't know my son. And if anybody can make this work, he will leave the leg. And if you want to, cut it off later, but don't cut it off now. So the doctor kind of reluctantly said, oh, okay, but it's going to be shorter than the other. He's never going to walk again. He'll be on crutches for the rest of his life. It'll be shorter than the other. Well, I'm not guarantee how it's going to feel. I'm not going to guarantee function or anything. It's going to be like a stump. His life will be better if we cut it off. My dad said, no, we don't care. Leave it. Okay. So had the surgery. It was successful, massive surgery, but it got infected. So I deal with this chronic infection for several months, trying to heal up in the hospital. Never get over the infection, but heal up enough to check out after 4 months. I go back, I'm working the whole time. It's my business, and so I mean, I'm not going to shut the door. So I'm working from the hospital bed and finally get out, back to work. I just want to get back to normal. Mom and dad go home, right? And the next scan, pancreatic and lung cancer on the scans. I'm just like, what? Are you kidding me?
Could I
And
ask you
yeah,
something
yeah, go ahead.
interrupting?
Sure.
Because at times like this, um, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us begin to question, where is God and why me?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So did any of that cross your mind after, like, okay, hello, I'm fighting, I'm giving it, my 50%, we're spirit coming in, their 50%, what's
Yeah.
happening, how did that go in regards to that? And then you can carry on to the rest if you want.
Yeah. I was just kind of, doing what the doctor said and trying to follow that and just kind of, be led by how I thought, and I know enough to know not to blame God. For me, my perspective on that whole thing is, long time ago with Adam and Eve, they're the ones that messed everything up for us, right? And sin, there's sin in the world, and the world is really kind of the devil's domain. And God sent Jesus for our way out of here, right? And so my perspective is, you know, bad things happen to people, but if you believe in God, He will help you find a way out. So if you turn your back on Him and you blame Him, there's no help there. So I knew enough to know not to do that, but frustrated, confused, I mean, yeah, and sometimes angry at God, angry at everything, sometimes upset, through all the different emotions you can only imagine, and down there in New Zealand by myself thinking, God, what, this was a dumb idea this far away from home. I'm thinking, all the health issues and just like, God, I love it. This is what I wanted to do, but now it's just kind of not a really smart idea to have, you know, decided to move here with knowing no one, I mean, I had my friends and stuff, but they're not family, they're not your parents. Yeah. Um, yeah, so the pancreas and lung thing, obviously the pancreas is way more serious. It's less than a 5% chance when you're diagnosed with pancreatic cancer with treatment. Okay. So we decided we're going to cut it out. It was at the bottom end of my pancreas, the tumor was. We're going to cut that out. And, just like we did with the hip. Every time they're just like, well, we found cancer, so cut it out again. Okay. Well, we had the surgery. It was successful. This was during COVID, by the way. COVID had hit between the diagnosis and the surgery. So we're locked down. Surgery all by myself. That's not a big deal. But, the isolation and no one can visit you and all this stuff, right? Well, when the surgery was over, have the debrief with the doctor, and they're like, congratulations, you don't have cancer. What? Why did we do the surgery? Well, it was a misdiagnosis. It was a blood clot, we couldn't tell on the scans. And I'm like, there's no consequences. It's public health care. What are you going to do? Right? So let's take the positive out of the situation, and I'm alive, right? And I still have half my pancreas. And okay, so we beat pancreas cancer some way or somehow. And I'm like, well, God gave me a way out of this, right? Okay. Then the lung thing, right? So we had the lung surgery. That was successful, but that got infected. Okay.
May I ask you one thing? Sorry. Did you get a repeat lung scan after finding out the pancreas thing was kind of
They
not?
were sure. They were very
They were sure.
They
Okay.
were sure this was cancer on this one, right? And so normally I show a couple of kind of little props that help me. So when I had the surgery, this is what it looked like afterwards. So you can see my pelvis, right? See my spine. This is what they took out. But they left this little wire here, okay? That wire was to keep my leg from moving up because it's jello in there. Any pressure, it just kind of continues to just move up, right? Well, they decided when I was in the hospital with the lung thing, we're going to take out that wire. It's causing the infection. So, I'm hopped up on the drugs from the lung surgery, and they're like, well, we want to take that out. So I just kind of agreed, and they did. Well, it caused some issues. And this is what it occurred. So my leg bone that was here ended up moving to here. And this is the size shoe that I ended up with. 4¼ inches. Yeah. That's like the biggest platform shoe anyone ever. Okay. So I have an infected lung, infected hip, still in the, 2.5 months in the hospital, still no visitors, no nothing, all that thing. Got out, still trying, this dragging this leg around on crutches, trying to work, do my thing, whatever. Next scan, no, you really do have pancreas cancer this time. You've got to be kidding me. Okay, well, this time, can we do a biopsy? Because last time you refused it. You wouldn't do it, and it was a mistake. And if we do it this time, it's going to make me a diabetic, and I don't want to do that. My grandmother went out diabetic, and it was a tough deal watching that. I don't want to do that. Okay, we'll do a biopsy. Took a couple months to do a biopsy. Okay, when they found the cancer on the scan, it was the size of a couple of nickels on its side. Okay. I was getting the scan reports. I started getting them afterwards and reading them. I can read measurements. Well, one of the last scans I had, it had turned into the size of a tennis ball in like 4 months, growing into my stomach. I can't eat. Okay. I'm losing weight. I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, I'm dying, right? I pay enough money to go to a private, get a private opinion. This guy's like, Trent, it's too far gone. There's nothing we can do. We can't do anything. You can go home. We can't do surgery. We can't do radiation. It's too risky. Everything's too risky. It's too far. And I'm like, and do what? Like go home and wait to die? And he said, well, you may make it, but there's nothing I can do for you. And I said, man, you're giving me a death sentence. It's less than a 5% with treatment. And you're telling me no treatment. So, I'll just go home and dig a hole, So at that point, I started kind of losing it, right? I started kind of going into depression, and my team's like, Trent, you don't have to come to work anymore. And I started kind of sitting around the house because they were calling me. They needed me at work. I had to, I have to make decisions and help people, and people don't know what to do and tell them what to do. And it was a good thing, right? It was a good thing. Get me out of bed, get me to work, get me thinking about that, because there's only so much you can think about yourself, right? Until you just start really going negative. And so, I sat around the house for a couple of weeks doing that, and I had an appointment with one of the pancreas doctors. And after that, I got on the phone with my mom and dad. That's what we do usually after the appointments. All together on the phone. Afterwards, call. Let's talk about it. What are we going to do? Well, my folks are strong Christians, good people, awesome. I wouldn't be here without. Seriously, I mean, it pulled me through on some of the days I just couldn't. I could feel them losing hope. I feel them, the helplessness. They're like, our kid's gonna die. He's got to, they've given me a year, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. I'm like, I can't get insurance. And you know what? It just hit me. It just hit me. And I'm like, I'm not a quitter. I am a fighter. If anybody can do this, I can do this. A chance is a chance. I don't care what the percentages are. I only have one life, and I only need one chance. And that just something happened. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to fight this thing. And if I go out, if they put me in the ground, on my last breath, they're going to say he fought to his last breath, and I go out with my dignity and my pride. And I'm not giving up. I'm not curling up. That was terrible. Waiting around like that, watching the clock. I mean, it's horrific what it does to your head, right? So my dad and I figured it out that I could get some insurance. Things had changed a lot since I had been in the States, hadn't lived in the States for, 15 years or something. Figured out I could get insurance, expensive but affordable, right? So there was a limit of how much money. I wasn't going to come home, bankrupt my family, and die, right? What are we going to do? They're broke and sad. Well, let's just be sad, trying to be practical about it. Came home, looked around, thought, where am I going to go? Let's start at home here in Arkansas where my parents live. I know the healthcare is good enough. If it's not good enough, we'll go somewhere. I mean, dragging them to New Zealand, them doing the whole thing with the leg, hard on everybody. Went to the clinic 5 minutes up the road, right? And went in, told the guy my issues the morning I got off the plane. I was in the clinic. And he said, look, this is serious. If we don't do something, you're going to die for sure. But I think I can get this. I think I can get this tumor. And I'm like, what about all these issues? What about this? And they said, look, we've got pretty good machinery here. And, it's state of the art. And I think we can get it. You're going to have to trust me or go somewhere else or do nothing. Right? Okay, let's go for it. So we did. We zapped it, and it had grown to the size of a softball, right? I had about a half a sausage worth of my pancreas left. So you can imagine, right? We zapped it though. Had to wait a few months. We got it. We got it. Unbelievable, right? And so I was still, I was like, okay, I started building my momentum. And I did some immunotherapy, so, we wouldn't have anything else spread metastatically like it had in New Zealand. We were concerned about that. So it's like, well, I thought and I'm alive. I did this for my parents, right? I didn't want to die on my folks, but I'm going to walk for me. I got to get over this infection. So I found a doctor here in Arkansas. Went to them. We used some antibiotics they didn't have in New Zealand. Had to do a 3-month course of these. Most people's maximum is 2. Made me sick. It was an IV thing, 2 hours a day, every single day at the same time. I was nauseous. I was sick. It just felt like I was on chemo or something. It was terrible. But you know what? We got it. We got that infection, which allowed me to at least talk to people about this hip implant that I wanted. I was told in New Zealand, you'll never walk again. You'll never get a surgery. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing left to bolt anything to, right? I mean, okay. I just wouldn't give up. I got told no by several big hospitals here. They were just, some of them just told me, just don't come back, like it's just not worth it. Well, luckily, and the Lord had a plan, right, to get me back here. to Arkansas to meet the people that I did, the network that I did. And I had an orthopedic advisor. This guy was an orthopedic with the cancer thing and all this stuff. And, we just have a checkup every 6 months. It was like, here's the plan. If you can beat this cancer, we'll look at the infection. If you can beat the infection, we'll look at the implant, right? So we were catching up and he said, look, if you really want to try to walk again, I think I got a guy for you at Mayo. And I said, man, I've been to Mayo. I've seen Mayo. They told me that, they could only offer me some really not a good, nothing that would work, right? Just this, he said, well, you haven't talked to this guy. And he worked with me. He does hips and knees. He specializes in this that no one else in the world does. And this is his thing. I'm going to refer you to him. I'm going to connect you guys. Go see him. Okay. I go up to Mayo. I see this guy. We have an appointment. We decide that we're going to do a 3-part plan of 3 surgeries. We're going to do a hip. We're going to do a temporary hip to get everything ready. We're going to put a permanent titanium hip in, which won't give me all the length back. And then after that, we're going to cut the femur and do a bone lengthening procedure to give you the 4.5 inches back, 4.25. Because I said, look, doc, I love a hip implant idea, but I need all 4 inches. I need a plan or I'm not going. I'm an all or nothing guy. So we have to figure out something, because he's like, there's no way we're going to be able to do a hip implant, and get 4 inches. We can't stretch the nerves that far. It'll paralyze them. There's just things shrink. They don't come back to them. Okay. We did the temporary hip. That went all right. Then we did the permanent hip implant. That kind of was rough. I had the surgery last July. And then it got infected. So we kind of had to redo a lot of it back in October. And that was really rough on me. But they put in the largest, most complex hip implant that's ever been done in the world with procedures that have never been done. And, this is a replica of my actual pelvis, right? With half of it missing. And this is the little $1 million piece that they invented to hook everything together. And it fits in here. I mean, I always get this wrong, how it fits in here, but it fits in here, something like this. Okay. You can see that's where the socket goes for the leg. And, hey man, I'm a couple months away. I'm on 1 crutch now, and I'm not too far from being on a cane and walking. This is what a normal hip implant looks like, right? Okay. Kind of a typical one. This is what mine looks like. All this, screws going all the way across, rods in my spine. It was 2 days of surgery. I think the first day was 18 hours. The next day was like 6 or something like that. But hey, I'm going to get my dream. I'm going to get my dream. I'm going to be walking soon. I know it. Now, I didn't get all my length back, right? Because, this is what they gave me back. But I got stability. I got a hip. I got functionality. I got something to pull against. I can move my leg. I mean, my leg just was like a swinging, pendulum. It just, I couldn't even lift it. I couldn't do anything with it. I mean, I don't even have feeling in part of, I don't even, so, but hey, I'm going to be walking on this. And I don't know, I'm up in the air if I'm going to do the bone lengthening thing, because, the infection and everything that happened really set me back. It kind of killed some of my mojo, but hey, you know what? Maybe that's not what I'm supposed to do. When I get there, I'll think about it. When I get the sign, when I get the answer, I'll either go for it or I won't. But I don't have to make that decision today. I am happy, grateful, and thankful for being alive, for beating the infection. I'm going to be at least walking soon, somehow, some way. I mean, who cares about that? That little shoe, that's not a big deal.
I have a tons of questions.
So that's kind of the story. That's kind of the story in a nutshell.
All right, so let's start digging into this a little bit deeper into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me start with New Zealand because mentally, okay, not only were you going through something physically, but mentally, the amount of stress that your nervous system is going through.
Oh yeah.
Sympathetic fight or flight mode. The amount of negative thoughts, whether you want it or not, that I'm sure we're shooting like crazy, and part of our ego that doesn't want to die, we don't want to cease to exist, period. Like that's the last thing on our mind. Well, cease to exist in this body anyway. But you know,
Yeah.
it's to fight against your survival.
Yeah.
So mentally, was there anything that you were doing to kind of keep yourself sane, like meditating, breath work, and journaling, anything to try to keep you from basically from going crazy?
Sure. Well, just kind of dumb and hard-headed the first couple of times with the cancer. I just would, okay, well, we got over this. Let's just get back to work and maybe life will be normal again, right? As normal as we can get. Didn't, didn't think too much about it. Well, the third time, I'm just like, something's got to change. I got to do something. I'm really gonna die now, right? I just kind of kept listening to the doctors, kind of doing what they said, but I didn't change much. I just kind of kept that fight. I'm just a fighter, I just fight it, I just hang on. I count the days down. Oh, relief, this is over. Okay, let's just get back to normal. Thank God that'll never happen again. Well, with the pancreatic thing, it was like I finally woke up and I started doing, going to a counselor, right? And we started doing some meditating. And when I had that epiphany moment that I was talking about, with my parents, it was like, okay, we're changing everything. And I know with kind of some of the self-help stuff and the things that I know, spiritually or whatever, there's kind of 4 or 5 parts to a person: the mind, will, body, emotions, and spirit, right? So, well, with the body, what are we going to do? We're going to start making healthier choices with what we're eating. I'm going to start exercising, and making decisions like I'm going to be here, like I have a long term. Like within the week of me getting diagnosed with this pancreatic cancer, I went to the gym on my birthday with these crutches and this shoe and the leg and everything and worked out my legs. I couldn't even touch my toes. Okay. That's why I wear the Crocs, because I couldn't touch my feet for years. And I worked out and I said, you know what? I'm doing this on my birthday because in years, when I'm walking, every birthday I have, I'm going to remember that I was making decisions like I'm going to be here, that I'm going to live. So, we kind of got that going, right? That's just self-discipline. It's not that hard. The head, though. Oh, the head. So the counseling, and she gave me some meditations. The Leaves by a River, that worked well for me. The body scan I would do. The tree in the forest, I think it is that one. So you know what? I would do those meditations, and I don't even know how to even explain it. I can just tell you that I visualize my cancer falling off this tree, because I kind of combined the tree and the leaf thing. I'm the tree. They fell off, the leaves fell off, which is the cancer. They fell off into the stream. They go down the stream. They just fade away into nothing. And at the end of the stream where I can't see anything is Niagara Falls, where my cancer things fall down and they're just gone, right? I do not know how, but that thinking those things calmed me. I could just put my problems and they would just, I have no idea how to explain it, but if you do meditation, and even when you do it in the beginning, you're like, this doesn't work. You have to do it some. You got to do it for a couple weeks. Just do 10 minutes. Just do 10 minutes. Just relax, right? And I started in on the self-help stuff, right? I started evaluating things, cutting out the negative things in my life, so like any negative programs on TV, not too much news, evaluated some friendships that weren't so solid, things like that. And then if I wasn't at work, I was trying to do something to get my head right, to better my chances that I was going to make it. So at the end of the day, right, this is how simple I just broke it down. I'm like, if I just win today and I win enough days in a row, I won't die. I won't die, right? So, I'm really hard on myself. I evaluate things, at the end of the day, when you're going to sleep, what do? You think about what happened at the end of the day. Think about what you did. When I go to sleep, I want to feel good about it, right? So I just try to make decisions that would make things good. With my head, though, self-help things, miracle sermons, find people on the internet that had beaten cancer and how they had done it. And, if they can do it, I can do it. I'm doing all these things to better my chance. Let me just better my chances. Can I just better my chances? And it took probably 9, 10 months for me to kind of get my head turned around. And one of the things that worked the best was I would find something that resonated with me. Self-help, podcast, sermon, song, music, anything, right? It was like this is the theme for the day, for the week, for a few days, whatever, right? And I would just repeat, 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 repeat. And I'd play it going to sleep. And I'd wake up and it'd be playing. And I knew the way I measure if it gets into me is if I wake up and the first thing I think is I'm thinking about that. Or like the first thing is like a business, listen to the song over and over and over. First thing I do is like before I'm even awake, I'm singing that song. And I'm thinking, now I know it's getting in there, right? You have to like renew your mind. And I am hard-headed. I am a knucklehead. I'm stubborn. That can be a weakness, right? It can work against you. So, this practical, just factual mindset that I have and believing all these doctors was a really hard thing for me to turn around. But it's my choice. It's my life. They're part of. They're just they're an input into the final decision, right? And I'm a go-getter. You have to go out there. You got to get what you get. You got to put yourself in the right position to survive, to make it, to meet your goal, to overcome your obstacle. And the part that you can't, that's grace. That's faith. That's where that stuff comes in. And so, I kind of have to, I have to do my part to feel like I can kind of say, all right, I've done my part and I'm in a good spot to receive what I need.
To be a magnet to attract.
There
Yes.
you go. There you go.
Now, did you have any issues with pain management medications or pain or managing your pain? Was it like, you know, opioids or whatever it was for you? Like, how'd you deal with pain management? Because I mean, literally people have herniated disc. I work in healthcare. I'm a nurse
Yeah.
practitioner and I work pain management as well as primary care.
Right.
And literally people have herniated discs and they're like, wanting controlled meds and all these things. And unfortunately, as you know, that causes addiction and a certain,
Yeah.
other events. So
Sure.
did you have any experiences with that in particular?
Yes. Um, and it's not going to be necessarily what you think. So in New Zealand, for pain management in the hospital, they use methadone. Very effective, right? Very effective as a pain management tool, but it's very addictive and it's a long come down. Okay. Well, on my hip, I was on the methadone. They stepped me down off of it when I got out, back to normal. With the lung and the hip, this time through, I was on the methadone, right? And they were stepping me down. And the surgeon came in and said, look, um, we have a patient that needs this bed more than you do, and you've got to go tomorrow. And I'm like, uh, well, I've got an incision in my back. I've got an incision open in my leg. I've got a vac on me. I've got an IV thing in my arm where you guys are pumping, stuff into me every day. I'm on crutches. I can barely walk, but my days consisted of let's get Trent out of the bed and put him in the chair. And then, a couple times a day, let's get him up and take him to the bathroom and back to get me up and moving, right? And he's like, well, you'll be okay. We'll send you home. So they sent me home. Sent me home the next day. Awesome. And that's so cute. And so I just thought, okay, so they packed me up, put me in a taxi, and sent me home, right? Well, I didn't have any, they didn't release me with anything. And in New Zealand, they're very, very careful about any of that kind of stuff you can get addicted to. And most of the time, they just give you a big box of paracetamol, right? And so, I had, just eaten tons and tons of paracetamol. But you got to remember, They cut me from my belly button to my spine, halfway down my leg. They basically have cut my leg off, sewed it back on. I got an infection this big in my leg, the size of a
Exactly.
cantaloupe, where the hip used to be, right? This big fluid pocket. Yeah, it hurt terribly. It was just horrible. So they released me. I'm out. You know, a couple days go by. I am angry. I'm frustrated. My emotions are up and down all over the place. I'm having hot flashes. Then I'm having the chills. You know, I'm just my head's all over the place. I'm got anxiety. You know, I'm just freaking out. I'm having suicidal thoughts and all this stuff. I am literally sitting in my office at my factory with my door closed at my computer in my underwear, just sitting there, just sweating, going, what is going on? And
Withdrawal
it's
symptoms?
yeah, I'm withdrawing from methadone. I was like, oh, I didn't even think it would be anything because it was like, I'm talking like just like a drop, like you know, like a dropper's worth. So then it became this drama, right? I call the hospital, I call my doctor, I call the hospital. They're like, the hospital's like, well, we released you, we can't give you anything. My GP's like, well, I can't prescribe that because you don't have and I'm like, I'm caught in this thing. And they're like, you can't come back to the hospital because we've released you. Okay, so I had to go through this crazy, you know, red tape thing. Finally, then I have to find a pharmacy that provides it because they don't provide it, right? So I'm calling around town. I finally find this pharmacy that has it. Okay, I go up there. They treat me like a crackhead, right? I mean, I'm having withdrawal. I'm right there. I'm like, you know, chomping, just, you know, like I need this. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The line's all the way out the door. You know, I'm standing there. I'm in pain. I got all this going on. You know, I'm waiting. And, you know, finally, you know, they just treated me like a crackhead, man. And I'm just like, look, you guys have to do something or I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. So I went through that. They would give me enough, right, to get me through about 2 or 3 days. I'd have to go through that all over again. I did that for a couple of weeks. I got so angry and frustrated with it. I just humped it. I just did it the hard way. I just did it. And I had the physical symptoms I had for a couple of weeks, but the mental thing, I had that for probably 6 weeks, 2 months. You know, I was suicidal, man. I mean, I was thinking about, I'm gonna go right out there on the deck and I'm gonna hang myself. And I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I'm gonna do something, you know? And so that was my experience with that.
So how long did it take you to kind of wean off like every 3 days like that? How long were
I
you
would
in
say
process?
it took me a couple of weeks, I think, kind of with the physical stuff, right? With the physical things, kind of like, you know, with the, you know, it just I felt gritty and I just it's hard to explain. You just feel really on edge and anxious and angry and frustrated, and like you're gonna crack at any time, and the hot and cold thing and all that. That went on for maybe a couple of weeks. But the head stuff, right? You know, the anxiety, the worry, the depression, you know, and then like the suicidal thoughts, you know, that went on
That's where I
for
was going to. That's where I
a
was going.
couple of months, I'd say.
So I want to
Really.
touch a little bit on that because I have been through depression, through suicidal thoughts, and through all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I did all that stuff, all the self-help as well. It's not as aggressive as your health issues, but I've been through health issues as well. And I can really relate to when you speak about these things because it really makes you question. There's a point in that spiral of darkness that even though it's an awakening process, sometimes we don't see it that way, when we're in the eye of the storm. So did you reach out for help? That's number one I want to ask, because sometimes we want to kind of bypass, numb, put it under the rug, um, stay busy, whatever we can do to not hear the noise that's in our head, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and a lot of times people feel like, you know, what are people going to think of me?
Mhm.
Um, that I want to commit suicide, you know?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Um, you know, they were aware. You know, I told the nurses, I told everybody, and they're like, you know, basically it was kind of like, well, if you think you're going to do something, you need to call us. And I had the counselor, my cancer counselor as well. But you got to remember, this was during COVID. Okay. You know, and me and my roommate had a falling out about the COVID thing. I could go to work, I could manufacture popcorn because we needed to put food on the shelf for the country because the only place you could go to buy food for months was the supermarket. So I was approved by the government to be able to go to work, right? And make popcorn. And he couldn't handle it, right? Because I could go to work, people were there, and man, they really they made us pretty worried about it in New Zealand. And so he and I were on no speaking terms, and I wasn't really allowed to go anywhere in the house. So I was all alone,
That was
right?
where I was going to ask you. Like literally, you had no one.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I
For how
did.
long?
Well, the thing with my roommate went on for a year or so, a year and a half. Yeah. We didn't speak at all for that long. I mean, when I moved out, I just said when I decided to come home, I just said, "Look, I'm giving you notice I'm moving out." And he said, "Well, what about the 3 weeks of rent that you owe me, for the stand down?" I said, I'm gonna pay my rent. He didn't care, that I'm going home. I said, "Me, I've got pancreatic cancer. I'm on my deathbed. I'm gonna go home, so I'm giving you notice." And he said, "Well, you owe me 3 weeks worth of rent." I mean, that's the kind of relationship we had, right? So yeah, that was tough. The worst thing was like being at home in my bedroom by myself, right? Being at work wasn't too bad. And if I started getting to that point, here even turns everything even crazier. About 6 months before I got diagnosed, one of my best friends in New Zealand that owned a restaurant down on the waterfront, this Mexican cantina. We go down there every day and on the weekends, drink beer, looking, over the beach, over the water, hanging around. Okay. He got into a bad business deal. His restaurant went bankrupt, and he went out into the woods on the other side of town and hung himself. Okay. So I have that going on in my head too, thinking I can't do this. I can't. Do you know how bad it hurts someone when they commit suicide rather than just passing away? I mean, just the hurt that people feel. I mean, I even felt guilty about it, and I mean, we didn't see signs, we didn't know. I mean, all the stuff, but like we all felt terrible. We all felt guilty. It was a sad, sad thing. And I'm like, you know what? Of all the things that I could do, that would be the worst thing I could do. I just, that's the only thing stopping me. That's the only thing stopping me. And what I literally would do is, I'm like, I got to get out of here, or I'm going to do something. So I would just get myself. I would remove myself from the setting, right? And I knew where my bad place was, had a couple of bad spots, and I had to limit my time there. So, one of them was my bedroom, unfortunately. And if I spent too much time there, so I would have to kind of block time out. I'm going to go to work and spend this much time, and then I'm going to go drive around in the truck for this much time, and then I'm going to come home for an hour, and then I'm going to go out to get dinner, or I'm going to go out, eat at the park, or whatever. That's kind of how I managed, it within myself, I guess.
So were you staying active in other, of course, not lower legs, but maybe upper body, or were you staying active in regards to any physical activity? Because that also, releases a lot of chemicals in the brain that can help you.
I really wasn't able to
Yes.
with how bad this leg was. I mean, I mean, my mind was like this, right? I would think, okay, we got to the point like where you could go through the drive-through, but you couldn't go in the restaurant. So at least you could do that, right? So what I would do is, let's say I'm gonna leave the factory. I'm gonna go somewhere where I can go through a drive-through, so I don't have to get in and out of the car. Because getting in and out of the car with this hip, I mean, it is just, I mean, the pain level, just, I mean, like on a 12, like on a 10 scale. I mean, just unbearable, and they won't give you anything for it. So, I would plan, I'm leaving work, I'm going through the drive-through, I'm gonna sit in my car, I'm gonna eat. Then then I'm gonna go buy somewhere where I can just drop the rubbish in the rubbish bin. Then when I get home, I get out of the car, I'm gonna wear my backpack, so I only have to come back and forth between the house one time, right? I would put all those, little trips and things together, so I could minimize, my movement. Um, but sometimes it's like the head or the pain. Which one's going to give, right? And it's like, well, if I stay here, I'm not going to feel any pain, so I got to get out, you know?
And did you find anything that was able to help you with the pain that is not addictive or as addictive, or it's more natural, or did you try a bunch of stuff until you, like, how did you, after you stopped the methadone and stuff like that, how'd you kind of like, did you find any stuff, did you try a bunch of things to try to manage the pain? And I speak a lot about this, sorry to bring it back around,
No, no, I don't mind at all.
because there's so many people living in pain.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and like I follow somebody on I'm not gonna mention who, but on Instagram that is going through a lot of pain and was asking for some solutions, right, to that pain and stuff like
yeah,
that. So
yeah,
maybe someone that's going through it be like, okay, so let me listen to this, let me see what he tried, let me see.
yeah. What I found was a CBT, kind of practice that really worked for me, and that was get your get your mind on something else, get focused on something else, because if you're not thinking about the pain, you don't necessarily feel it, right? So one of my things was I would go to work. If I could get myself and go to work, I get so involved, with my team trying to make decisions. And I'm caught up in this popcorn factory where we're making tens of thousands of bags a day. It's just mayhem, it's craziness. I can go there and get caught up in it and adjust my focus to that, and I would forget about it, right? And then everybody goes home, you're sitting there by yourself, and you ain't got anything to think about. You start thinking about the pain. So that's what I would do. I get it. I try to, get around people, hang around people, get involved in something, distract myself is what I would do, Yeah.
Okay. And were you able to try any like CBD supplements and stuff, or any have you tried plant medicine? Have you tried anything out of the norm per se?
They didn't really have that kind of, I wasn't into that stuff in New Zealand, and they don't have any of that they don't have any of that really as an option in New Zealand. But the meditating stuff that helps, doing the body scan thing helped, kind of relieve the pain. And I mean, really, it was like just try to distract myself, really. That's what I try to do. And it was like anytime I moved, if I was laying down and I wasn't moving, I was okay. But trying to get in a position to lay down, I'd aggravate everything, and like I gotta have my pillows all right, and between my legs, one on the side and one under my butt, and da 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 da. It'd take me, 4 or 5 minutes to get everything done, and then you aggravate everything, and then I gotta lay there for a half hour. And I just got into a process where I knew, right? It's like, well, this is gonna happen. You're gonna lay here for about 20 minutes, and then the pain's going to kind of subside, and then you can relax, right? So you're going to have to go through that to get to where you need to go, and get to where you mentally want to try to be, you know.
So how's your pain now?
It's okay, it's not near like it was, but I still have some pain, I mean, with this hip and everything. And it just, yeah, I still have some pain, but it's manageable. It's minimal compared to what it was. I'm all fixed up, I'm all sewed up. But yeah, I think what happens over time is, kind of that median that you have, it just moves, and you've been in pain for so long that some that would be a lot for others.
Your pain threshold has
Yeah, yeah, it's just gone up. Yeah.
and sorry to get personal, you don't have to answer if you
No,
don't
no.
want to. Do you have
No.
any partner or kids or anything like that in your life?
No, well, not at the moment, not at the
Uh,
moment. So yeah, I was a career guy. Luckily, I think that was kind of a blessing that I've never, wasn't involved with anyone when that was going, when all the cancer thing was going on. And so yeah,
so
no kids, no kids. So
the
I'm
reason
very,
I ask is because I know it's a difficult process for you, but also your loved ones. I
yeah.
mean, it's a lot on them.
Oh, I mean, I still deal with guilt about, what I put my parents through, and it's it's not my fault, but it kind of is my fault. I mean, it is me, right? It's decisions that I made and things I have to take some responsibility, that for some of the things that I didn't do or did do to cause the cancer, right? I mean, it didn't just show up. It didn't. So there was some things with my lifestyle that probably helped to make me a higher percentage to get the cancer. So yeah, I mean, it's just my folks, man. I mean, it's put a lot on them, and well,
So to kind of
yeah,
finalize here, I have two questions that I think are going to be really useful for anyone listening.
sure.
One would be if you were to go back in time
Hmm.
and you could have done anything different,
Yes.
what would that be, if there is anything at all? And the other one would be, what are, I don't know, just to say, what are the top three things that the lessons or the gifts that you were able to obtain out of this experience?
Right. Okay. So do you mean before the cancer, like
In
what
the
in general?
whole, in general, yeah,
Yeah.
through your whole journey since being diagnosed up until now, like maybe top three things, top three lessons that you learned or
Sure.
gifts that you kind of like the positives that you got out of it. Or maybe it's personal growth, spiritual growth, or whatever, however you want to focus that.
Okay. Yeah. I think one of the big things that I learned was I should have listened to my conscience more. I should have listened to that spirit inside me saying, you know what? You're working too much. You need to take a break. You're sacrificing going to the gym rather than you're working rather than going to the gym. You probably should have gone to the gym. You're eating fast food instead of taking some time to actually go have a meal, a proper meal. And these are just simple things, right? That on that particular kind of vein, how it works. It's with a lot of things that I wish I would have listened to my conscience more, right? And that's for me, it's my conscience, the Holy Spirit, that deal. Um, One of the things, and I'm quite passionate about this now, and it's really kind of what I'm moving into is patient self-advocating, right? That I just took what the doctor said. I just listened and I just thought, these guys are the experts. No one should have the authority to speak over your life except for you and someone that you very, very highly trust, right? Because I was letting these doctors, and I have no ill will towards them. They did the best they could. They see you for a few minutes, but how are you going to let somebody that you talk to for 10 or 15 minutes tell you you're going to die? They don't know me. And I took back my power, my empowerment, and I took back the power of making my own choices and saying, you know what? Thanks, guys. You guys are a part of my decision. You are not the decision. I make the final decisions in my life, right? So I'm going to take on board what you said. I'm going to listen to it, but you guys don't know all. I'm the only one that's been in this body 48 years going on in this head. I know what's going on more than anyone else. So I wish that I would have clicked on to that sooner, right? Um, And I wish that this kind of goes along with the conscience, I guess. I wish I would have come back home sooner. I
Wow,
wish, I
that's deep.
wish, I really wish I've been told, which is really hard to accept, that if I would have had my surgery in the US, my leg wouldn't have been like that. I wouldn't be handicapped. I wouldn't have had to go through all this extra stuff that they would have had a plan. I wouldn't have had to wait 6 months to get the surgery. I would have waited a couple of weeks, right? And I just, I did, and I have to go back, with this imbalance of things and say, you know what? At the time, me and my folks make the best decision with the information we had at the time, right? So hindsight's 2020, that whole thing, but gosh, it's just everybody knows that the best healthcare in the world is in the US. Why didn't I do that? I just, I regret that a bit. So, um, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I learned, you get these big goals out here, these big obstacles, these big things out in front of you. They're gigantic, right? They're impossible. Less than a 5% chance to live. Everybody's dying all around you, with this pancreatic thing. You're not gonna make it. Break it down into simple little segments, right? And for me, I break it down into a day. And if I can't do that, I break it down to let's get to lunchtime, and then let's get to dinner, and then let's get to bed. And let's try to make good decisions during that time. Let's make good decisions to get me to that point. So for me, and then it's simple, right? I've made it's as simple as I chose to eat a good, I chose to eat a healthy meal, okay, instead of eating fast food crap, just for example, right? Or I chose to go to the gym, or I chose to do some meditation, or go for a walk, or do some grounding, or anything that could help me. I listen to a podcast rather than do something else, right? I chose my time to do something with my time that was going to increase, in my mind, my chances of beating this. And if you win enough days,
The compound effect.
yeah, right. One other little thing I kind of like this. This is kind of one of my hacks. Very heavy conversations, right? Repeatedly, on and off about you're gonna die, you're gonna live, you're gonna take your leg, your limb, life, leg, and limb.
Give me a
It was
sec.
tough.
Let me grab my dog. You hear him?
Oh, oh, okay.
It's like a cat rather than a dog. I don't I don't know what I have.
It's
Come
okay, no problem.
here. My wife came to grab him. That's it. It's too much. All right.
Um,
Sorry about that.
Took myself kind of out of this whole thing, and I said, you know what? We're gonna play the game of life. And for me,
Ela.
the game of life for me is football. I love football, So I'm the quarterback. I equate everything to, it's an analogy. The coaches are the doctors. My teammates are the ones, on the team are my friends. You don't make yardage every play. Sometimes you get sacked, And when I get a touchdown is beating cancer. Right? You make a couple of good decisions in a row, you get to reset, you get to try 10 more yards. You keep marching down the field. Golly, you know what? And it was me, and the opponent is cancer, right? Or the infection. And doing it like that kind of really helped me to say, you know what? I'm not going to win every play. But I can't think about the play I just had. And I can't think about the next play. What matters is the play right now, which is today, the present. I've got to just win this one. Because tomorrow doesn't matter if you can't get today. So, just some of that kind of simple things kind of just, it helped me, and compare it to something that you like, a game that you like, or something or anything to take yourself out of that. And, if I didn't have an answer and I was confused or I'm just spinning, what am I going to do? I think, my grandfather was one of the people that I admired the most. Love the old guy. He's not with us any longer. It's been gone a long time. But I can just remember having conversations, sitting on the patio with him in his rocking chair, wise old bird, man. We would just talk about things, and I would think, if I can't make a decision for myself, what would happen if I was sitting here talking to my grandpa? What advice would he give me? What would he tell me to do? What would I be proud to tell him that I made a decision that I did that, right? And, some of those things is what got me through.
Wow. This has been such a deep episode of the podcast, and I really hope it empowers other people. I believe your message should be heard all across the world. It's a message of hope,
That's it.
um, a light at the end of the tunnel, and you have that personality and that aura just all around you, that light. You radiate and embody what you speak of.
Yeah.
Um, so I commend you for that. I thank you for that. And to me, is I see God in you. So and speaking through you and flowing through you and giving that message as a testimony.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's really amazing. I know you don't need at this point in your life any external
Yeah.
approval of anything, but I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your journey,
Yeah. I
how
appreciate
brave you are, what an amazing soul that you are. I really feel that connection with you, even though we're a bit far away.
I
And
appreciate it.
and I feel it in your energy and your vibration and your voice. You just speak all of that.
Yeah.
So thank you. And I hope this serves anybody that's it's going
Yeah.
through a hard time, that just
Absolutely.
keep going, stay in the present moment, one day at a time. Like you
Yeah.
said, make it to lunchtime, make it to dinner. Don't give
Yeah.
up, I think would be the main message here.
Yeah.
Do not
Yeah.
give up, regardless of the challenge.
You
There
know,
are
and
there
it,
any last words? Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. Any last words or
absolutely.
your services? What are you doing now after you went through that? Like, you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
did you find kind of like a bigger calling? Did you
Oh, yeah.
you finish that job and you're doing now something else? Like, how did you transition, or I don't know, just tell me a little bit of
Sure.
kind of like where you at today and what you
Absolutely.
offer.
Yeah. I want people to know, okay, that we've been talking about, all these positive things and these tools and how I did that. I'm just a regular person like everybody else. Okay. There's nothing extra special about me. And I still have bad days and I've still had some tough time, and I'm coming off, a really, really tough time at the end of last year and the beginning of the year with having to redo this whole hip and the medication I was on. I slipped into a really bad depression. It was really hard on me, with everything. I had a lot of other things that just, there's only so much. I can take a couple, but man, I had so many balls in the air at one time. And so I still battle. It's never over. And don't think that I have all the answers because we've come on here and talk about these positive things that have helped me, that, I still struggle and I still have tough days. And I still have those days where I'm just like, I want to pull the covers over my head. And I don't want to get out of bed and I don't want to do anything. But you know what? I don't do that. I feel like I want to do that, but I don't do that. I make the choice to get out of bed, put my pants on, get out the door, right? And go put myself in the right position to receive what I'm asking for and what I want, right? So, I just wanted to say that I've sold the popcorn business. That's done. That was a blessing. It needed to go. It needed to be managed by someone in New Zealand and blossom into the beautiful big thing it's going to be. So I've moved into, I believe that the Lord has given me a way out to tell my story. That's what I want to do. And I want to give people hope and inspiration and say, you know what? Just don't ever give up. If you get tired, take a time out, but don't ever quit. I'm developing some patient advocate courses. I do patient advocate and cancer journey coaching now. I do speaking at things. I'm speaking at our cancer banquet coming up, in a couple of weeks, and I do major volunteer work with our local cancer thing. I just believe in supporting my local society I had free counseling with them and yoga and all the things. And so I'm in good enough shape to give back to them. So that's what and I think that's my calling now. I'm here. I'm not here to go sell popcorn anymore. I'm here to say, look, when I have bad days, look at how bad it got, but I didn't give up. And I could have, and I wanted to, and I should have, and I had no chance, and everybody counted me out. But you know who didn't? I didn't count myself out. My parents stayed with me. I had the Lord with me. I had major people praying for me. And, I'm here. So if anybody needs any help, they want to talk to me or anything, my website's there, trentbrockcoaching.com. You can book a few minutes with me. You can send me an email, whatever. You know, I'm just happy to help. I'm just happy to help people. I know what it feels like. I've been there. I've been through almost all those things that can happen, so I can relate. And I'm not certified, medical practitioner or provider or anything, but I have been on this side of like over 100 doctor's appointments, 25 surgeries, 10 months in the hospital, two different medical systems. I know what it's like to be on this side of the knife, okay? And I'll tell you what it's.
My friend, you're certified in life. You don't need a certificate for that. You're proof of that.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on, and share and reach some people, your guests, your listeners. I don't know them, right? And we get to reach some people that we haven't, and that's what it's all about, right? What it's all about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your
you.
gifts with the world, with others that are in need now. And I'm really happy that you're in that position to be able to give back while you're
Yeah,
still working on yourself, learning. We all are just
yeah.
still working on ourselves, still a daily battle. We're still expanding, learning, walking together, right?
Hey,
Remember.
let me say this one thing. I just noticed you have that butterfly on the back of your behind you. I got to co-author a book with a group of people that, they had a big traumatic experience in their lives, and then they've gotten over it. I got to co-author this little book here. It's called Breaking the Silence: Voices of Survivors. Okay, I've got a chapter in here, and there's a lot of great stories in here with other people that have, beaten all sorts of stuff. And you can order it from me if you want to. You can send me an email if you want it. I'll give you a signed copy, or you can buy it off Amazon if you like. I just think that's cool that there's a butterfly there and a butterfly here.
Yeah, the butterfly, it's part of my soul mission after my near-death experience. So to me it's very dear to my heart, and it's a way of spirit, speaking and giving little synchronicities and signs away. Just like you see how you pulled out your book and you mentioned it
Yeah.
by seeing that. Before we leave, are you working on your own story, on your own book, or is that in the works or in the future, in the near future?
Yeah, yeah, I have a rough draft of kind of my story, because with 5 or 6 pages, it's just kind of hitting a few of the high points. And I actually, um the lady that organizes this, Michelle Jewsbury, she's doing the second volume, so I'm doing a chapter in that book as well. So eventually, when I quit writing for stuff like that, I think I'm going to do mine. But I'm really keen. I'm working on my business. My website's up, and I'm open for business. So I'm kind of working on that, and I think kind of towards the end of the year, I'd like to maybe work on my own book. It's a big project, man. That's a really big project.
It
Gosh.
is. It is. I took a year to write I did a co-author book as well. That's how I started, get my
Yeah,
feet wet, see how that feels, and learn tons of it from the
yeah,
process.
yeah,
And so writing my own was a lot easier. Like I would say, if I wouldn't have done that co-author one,
sure.
it would have been really hard for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a year too. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, so I know that's going to kind of take me out from doing, some of the stuff that I'm kind of concentrated on right now. So it's in the works. It's going to have to happen eventually.
There are no coincidences that I said this here. It's a little push from the universe.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. Yeah,
All
no
right,
doubt.
Trent. It is a pleasure to have had you here on the podcast. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for having me. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.